Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The meeting of the heads of the Law and Justice Party about the governing coalition lasted over 3 hours. According to media reports, the resignation of Zbigniew Ziobro from his position as Minister of Justice has not yet been decided. Other sources suggest that there will be a direct conversation between Jarosław Kaczyński and the leader of the United Poland, during which Ziobro will be acquainted with the conditions for the coalition's future.
The meeting at Nowogrodzka Street came to an end at 4 p.m. The meeting of the heads of the Peace Org PL has finished and many decisions were made. We will inform you about the details in due time. There were several variants on the table: a minority government, early parliamentary elections in which the Law and Justice Party would take part independently, as well as an agreement between Ziobro and Gowin.
Zjednoczona Prawica jest dobrem.
The United Right is good, and the United Right coalition has brought many good things to Poland, many positive changes in various areas. We're not perfect, but we're much better than those who were before us. I'm convinced that this is a project with a great future ahead of it, and it can do a lot of good for Poland, so that Poles can live better, and so that Poland can develop. The minister has clearly backed down. He says he is able to talk about the so-called Impunity Act and the Animal Rights Protection Act. I think it is a clear signal that Zbigniew Ziobro wants to remain in the coalition. President Andrzej Duda is also concerned about the situation in the ruling coalition. During the presidential campaign, the United Right Party promised Poles peace and stability. Above all, you must take the voters into account. They received a very clear message from the United Right that Andrzej Duda's victory will be followed by peace and stability. Instead, we experience a concert of wishes of the smaller coalition partners, which is unacceptable, because first of all, we must provide the voters with what was promised. The president would expect the parties of the ruling coalition to remember this. According to most commentators, the turning point of the crisis in the United Right will be the matter of the next few days.
Attorney General Zbigniew Ziobro said during the morning press conference at his office that if the court decides to arrest Leszek C., who controls Getin Bank and Idea Bank, an arrest warrant will be issued for him. The charges against Leszek C., and we're not allowed to repeat his surname, concern the alleged fraudulent disposition of property of Idea Bank's clients amounting to 130 million zloty.
This fraud is showing that we cannot tolerate the notion that the rich and connected feel that they are above the law, in particular when they break the law in a grandiose way and hurt a great number of Poles. The Attorney General's office, of which I'm the head, will always put the high principles of law above everyone.
Polish oil and gas company PGNiG will increase extraction of crude oil and gas from deposits in the North Sea. According to the company, its subsidiary, PGNiG Upstream Norway, acquired 20% of the shares in the Duva deposit in the North Sea. Production is scheduled to begin at the turn of the year.
What is important for us? Well, thanks to the takeover of this deposit, the extraction of hydrocarbons, including gas and crude oil, by our company will increase significantly. Our plan was to reach 0.7 billion cubic meters next year. Thanks to this acquisition, the extraction by our company will increase significantly and will reach 0.9 billion cubic meters.
The European Union's foreign ministers have failed to agree on sanctions against Belarus in response to President Alexander Lukashenko's regime brutally repressing the opposition since the beginning of the civil protests which followed the presidential election. Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, the leader of the Belarusian opposition, visited Brussels today and called for sanctions.
Today in Brussels, EU foreign ministers discussed imposing sanctions on Belarus, encouraged to do so by Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya herself.
Of course, sanctions are very important in our fight, because sanctions is the part of pressure that will force so-called authorities to start dialogue with us through a coordination council that I have created.
I think we have to recognize that the situation has not become better in the last weeks. The violence that Lukashenko uses on peaceful protesters is totally unacceptable. People are being arrested, mistreated. Today, we are faced with the question of whether the EU should place sanctions not only on those involved in electoral fraud or for those involved in carrying out violence, but we must also ask whether Lukashenko, the main person responsible, also needs to face EU sanctions.
It's time to come up with some more tangible, clear action, and least we can do definitely to issue sanctions I hope our colleagues in European Union will not keep European Union in limbo and will not take hostage, basically because it's really time to act.
The European Union demands that the presidential elections in Belarus be held again and that President Alexander Lukashenko resign from office. Mrs. Tsikhanouskaya has announced that she does not intend to stand in the new elections.
I asked Europe and other countries not to support financially the regime, because all the money that Mr. Lukashenko can get now, it will not go for the sake of Belarus, it will not go to people in Belarus, it will be only for violence, for killing Belarusian people.
Meanwhile, during Sunday's protest in Minsk, protesters were once again detained in large numbers. According to the Vyazna Human Rights Center, at least 152 people were detained in the capital and some 65 in other cities. Media reports that 2 of the detained were journalists from the Polish Belsak TV. The participants in Sunday's demonstration, in which more than 100,000 people took part, stressed that they do not intend to stop protesting until Lukashenko steps down.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.